Along to our special mastermind panel for COVID-19 planning. I want to start off today by giving a very warm welcome to all of our panelists for today. Casey, Dr. Paul, David, Mike, Chris, and JT, welcome along to all of you. And thank you so much for joining us and taking the time to share your expertise with all of the FBP family and essentially all of the global fitness industry today that's going to be tuning in to watch today's broadcast. So thank you so much upfront to each and every one of you. Now, to get the ball rolling, I'm going to ask each of you to just very briefly introduce yourself, tell us your title, what you do in the industry, and just say a little hello to all of our viewers today. So Casey, let's kick things off with you.
Okay, Casey Conrad, president of Communication Consultants, which is a company that provides sales, marketing, and management training to the fitness industry worldwide.
Welcome, Casey. Thank you so much. Dr. Paul Bedford, over to you.
Hi, Dr. Paul Bedford, behavioural psychologist. I support health clubs keeping their customers for longer. So once Casey's sold them, marketed them and sold them, my job is to pick those people and keep them in the clubs as long as possible.
Excellent. Dr. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. David, over to you, my friend.
Excellent. My name is David Steele. I'm CEO of Stevenson. We're a digital marketing agency that helps health clubs attract, convert, and engage members.
David, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Mike Gelfgot.
My name is Mike Gelfgot. I used to be operator of 21 gyms, now just one, manage a small mastermind group and working on some really cool projects.
Excellent, Mike. Really excited to have you. Thank you. Chris, your turn.
Chris Stevenson, Los Angeles, California, the founder of Stevenson Consulting and Red Power Ranger.
Very important part of the job title. Chris, welcome. Thank you. And JT, I saw it was not just JT, it was JT and Zoe for a minute then.
Yes, father of Zoe, who's just headed off to school on her push bike, making sure she stays 1.5 metres away from all pedestrians on the footpath. Managing Director of Active Management, and we are trying to do our very best through our Active Management Community Facebook group, keeping everybody up to date with the latest and the greatest on the industry.
Excellent, JT. Thank you. And thank you to all of you for that brief introduction. Now, just to set the scene for today's broadcast, we're going to break this up into essentially two separate sections. So to start things off, I'm going to ask each of our panelists to focus on the now. So what is it that we can be doing in our businesses right now to make a difference at a time that we're all going through the COVID-19 crisis right here, right now, today. But then the majority of our focus today is really about the future. So that's where we're going to spend most of our time during today's broadcast. So let's not waste any time. I'm going to be asking David Steele to kick things off for us. So David, can you share with us your number one tip across any aspect of business, but probably marketing and digital media for you, but your number one tip that would encourage owners, managers, or their team members to do right now?
So thanks, Chantel. So, closing your doors, because most of the U.S. right now is experiencing all their health clubs being closed, if not today, for very near future. And I want to make sure that that does not mean closing our hearts. I mean, we all got into this industry to make a difference. And I can't help but think that everybody is just really scared. I mean, people are losing their jobs. It's unlike a crisis we ever had. And at the end of the day, we don't know what the end will be, right? So I think about during like Hurricane Katrina, while most institutions did not know what to do, I talk about the people of New Orleans and the Mormon church in particular. They weren't highly regarded for the local community for a very long time. And during Hurricane Katrina, when all other institutions closed their doors, they opened up what they call their priestly warehouses, supplying everything from toilet paper to generators for free for their neighbors. They walked door to door, they helped out. And we have ourselves, in the fitness industry, almost the same situation. We have resources, we have knowledge, we know how to help people stay healthy during a crisis. We have an opportunity to help our communities like never before. And, I would hop on social media, start posting feel-good stories about members' journeys, create online classes, meditation, wellness seminars, anything to help people in need and not charge them for it. It'll go a long way in the future. I heard of one club in a local community that is running errands for people that can't or won't leave their houses. it's a time we can all pitch in. It does not have to take a lot of effort to help a neighbor while staying safe. We owe it to the community we work with. We owe it to our friends, our families, our loved ones.
David, thank you so much for that. And it is such an important part of all of this to keep in mind. And I think that in the fitness industry, we're so known for being upbeat and positive and really cheering everyone else on. And I think just remembering, as you said, why it is that we do what we do, why we're in this business is very, very important, and just continuing to share that love amongst the fitness community and our own community. So Mike Gelfgot, I'm going to throw to you now. Same question. One tip that you would share with owners, managers and teams right now.
Yeah, I think one of the most effective things you can do is take advantage of whatever the government assistance you can, because you are shut down. I talked to colleagues whose clubs were obliterated by either tornadoes or floods, and the ones that made it through are the ones that took advantage of what's available to help themselves get through the process. I mean, the way I look at it, it's a three-step approach. Step one, you got to play defense right now, and you got to figure out a way how to stabilize your membership and your personal training days. Like, what can we do to minimize people freezing their billing? And there's ways to do it. Two, once kind of dust settles, we can play offense. And I think there's a lot of really interesting things to take advantage of the situation you can do, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on. And of course, three, make sure to focus on training your staff. I mean, when do you ever get a chance to take a pause like this for 6, 8, 10 weeks without business and come out blazing, come out hot, because you've taken the time to train your team. So that would be my words of wisdom.
Thanks, Mike. Before we move on, I just want to touch on that, minimize people freezing their billing. Do you have because you said there are ways that they can do that. Do you want to share with us like your top tip for what they can do?
Sure. I mean, like, we all know that when people join a health club, they're joining more than just access to a facility. And in many ways, we can provide more than just access to facilities. In other words, if you have ways, whether it's virtual coaching, which is the most effective way right now to serve clients, to really go above and beyond for your member. I mean, now is the time. I love what we just talked about, which is showing empathy and showing your true heart and going above and beyond, especially in the times like these, and listening to your people and asking them, what do you need? I mean, there's so much technology that you can use. A specific thing we're using is called Coach Catalyst, a great little program. It's wonderful. I love it. It's such a wonderful way to deliver nutritional content to your people. It's a wonderful way to upload workouts, and it's so simple. But I think the most important thing, if you want someone to continue to pay you, why would they pay? What's the value? If you can add the value, if you can figure out a way on how to over deliver what you've already been doing, they'll stay.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mike. Casey, I'm going over to you now. Same question, your number one tip for what people can be doing right now.
Well, of course, all of the things that were said were on my list, but I want to take it a little more granular for people since the big notes have been hit. One of the things that I was talking about today on another broadcast and a lot of coaching with my clients is, okay, right now it is more important than ever to maintain your good health. And, I look at what people have bought in the store for their rations, and I think to myself, oh my gosh, that is a disaster for your immune system. So one of the things that I was suggesting today was, hey, you know what? You want to get out and have top of mind awareness with your community and give them the workouts and all that, but how about engaging the whole family? How about putting together a scavenger hunt or a to-do list and say, okay, we're starting a social media, and when you post a video of you cooking a healthy meal with your kids, doing an outdoor activity with your kids, it's going to get their lymphatic system moving, their blood flow moving, and on top of that, doing some sort of gratitude or mindful meditation. The first person, the first family that does that is going to win a 30-day membership to the club, whatever. Get your staff together and be creative, but do something that is going to, number one, educate people as to how to stay healthy during this time. Number two, helps build that community spirit. And number three, provides hope and motivation for people.
Casey, thank you for going into that level of detail, because I think that's exactly what we need to be exploring right now, is what are some of those ideas that we can practically implement. And I love the idea of engaging our team and just coming up with those ways to connect with our members and continue to connect even in times when they might not be in our clubs as such. So thank you so much for those examples. Paul, I'm going to go to you next on this one. Same question for you.
Okay, so I think where clubs are now depends on where you are in the world, because there seems to be a wave coming from the east to the west. And so places like Rome and Paris are in complete lockdown and people aren't even allowed to walk the streets. Then in London, you've got some clubs, the smaller clubs are already closing, the bigger clubs, the big boxes seem to be trying to still make up their mind what they're going to do. And everybody in between has come up with a structure. America seems to be closed. I don't know what it's like for you there in Australia. So now for different businesses means a different thing. But I think whatever you do now is going to reflect on your business in the future. And if you don't have a relationship with your customers now, you're definitely not going to have a relationship with your customers in the future. So I think it's about the way in which you present yourself as a business. It's the way in which, it's almost like your reputation. I think I heard Casey say it earlier today, it's reputation management or marketing now, as opposed to, perhaps hard sales and things like that. But if you lay off your staff, but keep charging your customers, that's going to bite you in the arse. If one of the clubs here in the UK, they've just recently, I was listening to people talking today, customers, they've had 200 people suspend today in one location. But they're allowing them to suspend indefinitely. Because we don't know what the length of this is going to be, people are coming out, I want to suspend my membership. Rather than getting them to cancel, so they're trying to stop them from cancelling by saying, I want to cancel my membership. Well, actually, your terms and conditions are you have to pay the period. However, what we're going to do is we're going to suspend your membership indefinitely. And when you come back, we'll just reinstate it and we'll run the period of cancellation or run the period of the contract from then. So they're trying to be as positive as possible. And I think that's what you've got to do. You've got to take a stance in terms of what you think is appropriate to your business and think about, if I do this now, what's going to be the outcome in the long run?
Paul, thank you. And just because that was such an important point that you just touched on, I just want to throw this to all of the panel right now. Has anyone else seen an example of a club of what they have done in the current environment along the lines of what Paul just touched on that you would like to share with the group that you feel has been a successful way to manage member freezes or member cancellation requests? Casey, thanks. And then Mike, I'll come to you.
Being proactive about this and going through and looking at and running your membership list to see which of your members would be at high risk anyway, and instead of waiting for them to call, if you're going to have a policy of a freeze, actually call them up and say, hey, we're calling you because this is what we're doing. We're actually going to freeze your membership for the next 2 weeks minimum. We'll reconnect with you once we know when the government lifts everything up, blah, 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 blah. And in the meantime, did you hear about our online classes for you and your family? So be proactive about it. And I know some people are going to say, what are you, nuts, Conrad? Let the sleeping dogs lie. I don't believe that. I think if you let the sleeping dogs lie, they're going to come out and you're going to, have a lot more people that won't be as open to the freeze and are going to want to cancel.
I can see a lot of heads nodding, agreeing with you, Casey. So Mike, just on that note, what did you want to add to that?
Well, and it's nice to have a Casey, we got a notice like 4 or 5 hours. We're out in Ohio. So you got to come up with a plan, right? And so, we came up with a plan, and, so far I think we had like 5 or 6 or so freezes, but when there's a challenge, you acknowledge what the challenge is, we're forced to shut down, we recognize there's a challenge, like we get that. However, right, if you stick with us and you continue to stay a member, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you an excellent training program for you to stay focused, for you to stay disciplined throughout this difficult time and keep your immune system up. And we're going to lead you and guide you through this fitness journey. Right. And I think as long as you offer a plan, like if there's something negative that happens, acknowledge it. Gosh, that sucks. But What if I told you there was a way to stay consistent? What if I told you there was a way to stay disciplined amongst this whole process, which you're going to want to do anyway, right? Because you can be all cooped up at the house. You can walk a lot of people off the ledge, sort of thing, right?
Yeah. Thanks so much, Mike. Thank you. Chris, I'm going to come to you in just a second with that first question, but David, did I see a hand go up there?
Yeah, so we saw some clubs really get ahead of this here in the US, and they reached out, especially the smaller clubs, reached out to their membership saying, we have to charge you a membership. You know, that's what keeps us in business. It keeps our employees employed. The gym will be here for you tomorrow. If we don't charge you, the gym will not be here for you tomorrow. And then we'll just extend your membership or give you a month at the end or whatever it is. And I think it's important that one size does not fit all for this. There's some big boxes that are impossible for them to call all their customers or talk to them. And there's smaller clubs that can do some things that really, you know, bring out part of the community. It's important, the ones that are locally owned, to stress that fact that they're locally owned and talk to their members that way. Because I can tell you from my own personal experience is that the clubs that I belong to, I told them to keep charging me because I want them to be there when I get back. And that's important.
Great message, David. Thank you. So let's continue. We've just got Chris and then JT. I'd love to hear your number one tip on what owners, managers, or team members can do right now. Chris, over to you.
First, I just want to commend Casey for taking the social distancing seriously because from the video, it looks like she's actually in space. So I think that's good for everybody. So thank you, Casey. I think the first things first is there's so many, you know, the one thing about a crisis or about a tragedy is it tends to bring people together. And there's so many great resources out there. Dr. Bedford put together this very short video on 3 key ways to stay engaged with your members through this situation. Great video. And he did it just to be good to the industry. So resources like that. URSA has provided some free webinars on how to deal with this, but utilizing those resources and the active management page. And I always hesitate saying nice things about JT because it goes right to his head. But for those of you who've been following the active management page, I have never seen such people asking great questions, people giving great suggestions, really bringing everybody together to, you know, we're all in this battle together. We're no longer competing with each other. We're all competing to make sure that we all come out of this good when it's all said and done. And, you know, it's cliche to say, but this too shall pass and we'll be back to operating. But utilize all those different resources because they're out there. Share when you've got great stuff, ask questions when you need the help and do that. And then to kind of find a silver lining, you know, in a dark situation, but we always talk about working in your business versus working on your business. This is the opportunity where you're going to be doing a lot of working on your business. You're not in the day-to-day putting out those typical fires with members and this isn't clean enough and this class sucked and, you know, those daily things that you have to deal with. So it is an opportunity to step back, look at the bigger picture, at strategies, and, you know, coming from a customer experience focus, it's a great time to kind of evaluate what you're doing on the customer experience side. Are you doing good onboarding when it comes to training your new hires on customer experience? What are you doing on a regular basis to continue to train your staff? Because, you know, you can onboard them, but those skills deteriorate if you don't continue to train on them on a regular basis. So putting in systems like that and then figuring out ways to audit your systems. You know, what surveys are in place to make sure that your customer experience strategies are working? What are you doing as a leader to make sure you're observing it, watching it, coaching it? So it really is a good time. Obviously, we're still dealing with the closures and the refunds and those things, but we are going to have a significant amount of time to actually work on our business. So it's a good time to do that sort of thing. So get out of in and work on.
And Chantal, I was going to have, Chris, that's wonderful. I was listening to a webinar earlier today, and, you know, one of the biggest challenges with health clubs, they have 1 or maybe 2 revenue streams. And when the brick and mortar place shuts down, done. Like, yep. You know, and, you know, yes, maybe we could have done things differently, but boy, what an interesting time to think about, okay, I need to diversify. There's got to be in additional ways that I can generate more revenue. So in the events, I was listening to a different webinar yesterday. There's a guy, he's got a studio of 500 members. Every one of them, online coaching clients, hasn't lost a single penny, right? Because he was able to pivot right away. He's had a tremendous amount of resources already. And so you bet your butt that's going to strengthen his system. So when his business does open up, he can continue to grow it, but you know, differently.
Excellent. And Chris, I'm so glad that you brought that up because that's exactly where we're about to head with the conversation in just a second. And just to prepare yourself, Paul, I'm going to throw to you to answer the first question about the future. But before we do that, JT, do you want to share with us, you've been very patient sitting there quietly, which, you know, doesn't happen all that often. So you've had a chance to hear what everybody else has said. So share with us your number one tip for what owners, managers, or team members should be doing right now.
Well, actually, I've been writing a page of notes just on what people have been saying. So I'm sitting here as like anybody else, and loving and enjoying and very grateful for the knowledge that we have on this mastermind group. I think the number one thing for me is that I don't think clubs or studios or even individual personal trainers, I don't think you can under communicate at this stage. I think you can't over communicate and you can't under communicate. You got to find that sweet spot. But I think what's more important is that we don't over communicate in terms of content, i.e. in terms of words and crap and tonality in our message. If we can get a message out to our members or our clients in 2 paragraphs, then that's all it needs to be. I don't think we don't need to be going overboard with exaggerations or fake news or hypotheses of what may or may not happen. Let's keep to the facts. Let's just take a position of higher authority and keep that communication up. What I do know, though, is, and I'd love to know from the panel with a show of hands, how many people have got emails from companies, places you've been to that you actually didn't even know had your email address, and they're sharing their COVID-19 strategies and plans. I'm like, what? So we also got to be aware that our members are probably getting just as much crap in their inbox. So our stuff has to really stand out. So we've got to be thinking about those engaging headlines or subject lines so that people want to open those emails. The same on our socials. It's got to be open. It's got to be engaging. I'd love people to start to think about a common hashtag for their business that they can be putting all around the place. I know one guy on the active management community page had FUCV was his hashtag, and I really liked that, but I went one step further and thought maybe we go FUCV with fitness or with health, and that becomes a hashtag that maybe the whole industry could start running with. Fuck the fitness with fitness or something like that. Who knows? You know, I love Casey's comment around, you know, getting photos of people working out at home or cooking at home. I know they're not here, and I know many of us believe how good they are, but seriously, MyZone would be a great thing to be rolling out with MyZone challenges that people can do at home, and therefore your trainers can have direct communication back with people who are in that social ecosystem of MyZone, which gives you great impact. Everybody's talked about community, and I just want to also say one final thing is that one of the easiest ways, and I know probably Casey knows a lot more about this, and even Paul from a scientific perspective, one of the easiest ways to decrease stress for people is to make them laugh. And at this very serious time with a very serious condition where people are seriously stressed, we need to seriously make people seriously laugh. And I do love seeing some of the cleaning videos that people are sharing around the place. The more we can make people laugh, the more engaging it gets, and it lifts the spirits of people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Chantal.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Go, Chris.
Just one thing in line with what JT was saying with communication. I thought it was a brilliant point. Oh man, that's 2 compliments to JT in one broadcast. That's horrible. But no, but you know, don't under communicate, don't over communicate. Find that right balance. But I think in line with that, be as transparent as possible, and make sure to also manage expectations, because like here in the States, or at least in California, they said 2 weeks, 2-week closure. My gut feeling is it's going to be much longer than that. But what I don't want to see is owners going out and operators going out there saying, yeah, 2 weeks, we're going to be open. And then in 2 weeks, you find out they're extending it another month. So, you know, just the way you choose to say that, just manage people's expectations. We all want to get open again. We all want to get people back in. We want to please people, but just be careful in that. Because we just don't know we've had people say all the way to 6 months to 2 months, you know, those sort of things. So just manage people's expectations, I think is going to be key.
I thought you were
And,
going
Chantel,
sorry. Yep, Casey.
I know we're moving to the next question, but I just did want to tell you guys that, you know, we've got no sporting events to watch. We can't leave our houses. We've been going to be cooped up in 9 months. We're going to have a huge boom of births. And you know what they're going to call them? The Coronials.
I love that, Casey. JT, I can see you saying something. Unmute yourself.
I saw a great post this morning on Instagram, and it was I think it was a Spanish guy, and he was in his laundry, and he put water on the floor, and then he put detergent on the floor, and then he started running like he was on a treadmill in his laundry. Like, we are going to see some great innovation over the next few weeks and months.
We definitely are. Guys, thank you all so much for your comments on that. So I do want to move into really our main focus for today, and a few of you have already touched on this because we're obviously right smack bang in the middle of the thick of it right now. But I think, Chris, you actually mentioned the importance of taking this time to start planning what does our business look like in the future. We've got the time right now to be working strategically and to be thinking about what those plans are. So now that we've got the opportunity to work on the business, I'd love to hear all of your tips on what people can be doing right now to think about the future. So Paul, let's start this one off with you. What's your number one tip that you'd share with us on this?
I think the thing, if I'm thinking about training staff, so if I'm thinking I've got staff within a facility that I'm paying and I'm keeping on board, or even if they're at home but I'm still paying them, I would be looking to work out ways of doing almost case study avatar type workshops based on existing members. So pull someone's profile, say this is a customer, you know, if I say, like, if it was Chris, let's say this is Chris, he's 21, he does martial arts, blah blah blah. What program would you come up for him based on this profile, and see what the staff come up with differently? Because I think a lot of the time, once we've onboarded our staff, they work in isolation. They don't actually look at each other's programs. They don't look at how they're going to solve people's problems. And, you know, and I've been watching everything that's coming up on social media, like all the workouts at home. And I think 90% of them start with a burpee. And I'm like, you know, my friend Keith says, he goes, burpees are the fitness industry's equivalent of waterboarding. And it's like, they're just so hard, you know. And if you think about the vast majority of the population who do very little, to go, you should start exercising at home. We've got a home video program. We have to start thinking from a really individual perspective. What would I give this as a program? How would I, if I was onboarding this person today as a new customer, how would I treat them? But think of it like this, rather than thinking about what would I do in the 1 hour that perhaps I spend onboarding them, what would I do if I had to look after them for a year? What would the development of their program, the information be? How much would I spread that out if I had constant contact with them for a year? So I'd start with that, you know, keep your staff engaged, look at what you're already doing, and that I think that will up the level of the experience when customers come back.
Paul, thank you so much. And just so that you can all be prepared, Casey, I'm coming to you next, and then David, you after that. So Casey, how about for you, what would your number one tip be when starting to think about preparing for the future?
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to segue from what we talked about as far as taking this time to build community and use this as a top of mind awareness to engage not just your existing members, but other people in the community. I would be putting together, you know, we've successfully run weight loss programs and other fitness programs in the community just as a challenge, as a community challenge. I would be finding a way to put together a variety of weight loss, body comp loss, whatever it is, get as many of your members and non-members engaged with prizes and weigh-ins and pictures, et cetera, and have prepared for a huge coming out party, if you would, to drive people to the club as a way to say, hey, we're coming out of this, but you've engaged them in all these different health components along the way, and now they're going to come back to you for the party because they've been part of your tribe throughout this when you haven't asked them for a dime for non-members. You know, like certainly if you can keeping your members paying during this time, like I am to my gym, great. But there's going to be a lot of non-members that you can now bring in and say, hey, because I said this today earlier, I'm going to tell you right now, folks, if somebody is at home worrying about dying from the coronavirus and they fall between the ages of 18 and 60, then they're not taking care of themselves. And so this is going to be a huge wake-up call to a lot of people about, oh boy, maybe it's time to now look at my health, get off the blood pressure. I mean, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, and obesity, 4 risk factors that accelerate your coronavirus, fatality rate, if you would. So I think it's a great opportunity to engage the community and then get them back to the club once you're open again.
Casey, I think everyone was definitely listening in and agreeing with what you're saying. And for me, the big takeaway or the big word that just is in front of mind is the word opportunity. What have you written, JT? He's written down your tip. He's going to share it on the active management community later on today.
No, I think quite seriously, Casey, you have just dropped a big gold nugget. If people in our community are aged between 18 and 60 and think, I'm going to die of coronavirus, well, then it's time to get active. That's bloody gold. Thank you.
That's why we've got her on the panel today. Casey, thank you so much. And let's keep that beautiful word opportunity front of mind for all of us. So, David, I'm coming to you next, but JT's got his hand up. Go for it.
Can we just do a straw poll with the people watching, whether they're listening to this next week on the podcast or watching the video live? Is it wrong to use the hashtag coming out party, Casey?
We can let people comment on that.
I think it would be great.
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's just start it right now. Okay, so let's prepare everyone. So David, I'm coming to you, then JT, then Chris, then Mike. Let's do that. So David, let's go.
So to Casey's point, I mean, I saw somebody in the supermarket with a pallet full of chili checking out. And I was just laughing and wondering, that's why people have a run on toilet paper. And that's what people are buying, and that is obviously a problem. So it's a great point, Casey. But one of the issues I think that people are going to be, having to overcome is there's so many people posting content everywhere. And so how do you get yourself heard over all that noise? And you're really going to have to think about not stopping your advertising. I know, being in the marketing business, we always promote advertise, but I'm not talking about your typical 7-day pass because they can't redeem that, or join with no enrollment because people aren't thinking about joining a club and then paying dues where they're not going to be able to use it. But posting and boosting those exercises that you're giving online is going to be really important to be heard and be top of mind. Giving personal training tips and activities, as we talked about, creating ads that look like posts in the form of lead generation so you can gain market awareness is going to be really important. We know, based upon our clients and just talking in the industry, the marketing industry, is most of the big players are cutting back their multi-million-dollar ad budgets to almost nothing. And that's going to allow a smaller club to use effectively, stretch their dollars farther than ever before to capture market share. And when this crisis turns around, and it will turn around, they will be on top of mind. And so they have the ability to do things that the bigger clubs can't do, which is keep things local, personal, and interactive. They can leverage their human capital, asking content from instructors like Paul had said, and trainers, and even the members. And since kids are at home, we had one customer create workout with their own kids and his daughter, creating family workouts together. I mean, that's all super important. Who knows when it might, help parents get their kids to bed earlier. I mean, I would dream about my kids going to bed earlier. So that might be a big good way to kind of sell this thing is, have your family workout so you get some me time at the end of the night, which is important. So everybody needs a break to keep healthy.
David, thank you so much, and I'm glad that you brought up that piece on boosting the content that we're already creating. And for anyone that missed last week's episode of the Fitness Business Podcast, we had Dennis Yu on as our special guest, and he was talking about exactly that, basically grabbing the video content that you're creating right now and allocating a very small budget, but allocating some money towards boosting that and cutting through and really reaching our target audience. So thank you for bringing that up. And I thought it was a really significant point that you made in relation to now is the time. Now is the opportunity that a lot of the smaller businesses can actually do that without having to spend the huge amount of money that they might ordinarily to get that same result. So thank you. JT, over to you on this one. What's your number one tip for planning for the future?
Yeah, I'm kind of coming from the angle of our people and looking after our people. And I guess I want us, I mean, this is relevant now, but I think it's going to be particularly relevant post, is we need to be exceedingly human as leaders. We're going to have to demonstrate our concern and even our love for our team, because they're going to be going through some really tough challenges, both in their families as well as potentially professionally. So there's going to be fears and there's going to be anxieties that they will have once the government says open up the doors or get out on the streets. They're going to have these same fears and concerns. So I think as leaders, again, we need to debunk some of those myths, but we really need to take time with our team and show that concern and some of that love. We are unaware of what post-COVID-19 relationships are going to be like between employers and employees based on who's going to keep their jobs or not, even at the moment. But what we need to be aware of, and I love the idea that Chris said earlier, one compliment back, is start working on those plans on how do we look after our team. And these are the things that I really want to roll out. And the points that I would like to suggest that in that plan, number one is that you listen with your team. Number two is that you empathize with your team. There's no problems with you truly empathizing and showing your own vulnerability to your team, that you also have concerns or anxieties, and together we're going to get through this. And that's the third point, is that together we'll get through this. You're not alone. And as a leader, if we can get our team really cohesive, supportive of each other, imagine that impact that will then have on our members, and then our members would have on our communities. So I really think it's a big challenge for us as leaders, because there are going to be people. I don't like to use PTSD as a word, because I think, or as a descriptor, because I think there are people far worse conditions than just suffering COVID-19 and being isolated that truly have that. But there will be a degree of that sort of anxiety, I think, that our staff will have. And as leaders, we've got to try and nail that from the beginning when we come out of the blocks back to work.
JT, thank you so much. And just for everyone that's watching or anyone that's listening at the moment, you have probably picked up on a theme from each of our expert guests today. But just in case, and because I haven't called it out as such, I just want to kind of recap for each of you that JT is joining us today really as our expert on leadership. David is joining us as our expert around marketing. Casey, sales, of course. Chris, customer service. Paul, retention, and Mike, fitness services, PT, group training, that type of thing. So I'm sure as you've been watching, you have seen those themes emerge from each of our guests as they've been sharing their tips. So on that note, Chris, over to you to talk about the customer service side of things. What's your number one tip to plan for the future?
So I think the first thing to note is that experience, and every time I speak or present anywhere, or lead workshops, I always talk about the importance of an experience, right? The better experience you create, the more satisfied your members are, the more loyal they are, the more they want to come to you. And I guarantee you right now, clubs that have focused on creating a great experience are going to be the most successful in this particular situation. Because if you don't care, if you don't feel like you're getting a great experience and you just go to a gym because it's convenient or it's close or it's inexpensive, you're going to have no interest in continuing to pay why you can't get in or to support them in any way, shape, or form. But if your gym has put the effort into bond with you and build a real relationship and exceed your expectations and surprise and delight you on a regular basis, you're much more apt to want to see them survive, and because you feel like you're part of it. So I think that's really important. And then just kind of parlay into what I sort of talked about in working, it's a good opportunity to work on your business as opposed to in your business. Just something to give to our listeners that's very tactical. This would be a good time for you to create a 12-month calendar of training topics in the area of member experience. This is something we did at our club that was really effective, but each month had an overarching theme broken into 4 smaller components. And what it looked like in the delivery was myself or our general manager would email the entire staff and say, hey, our monthly theme is X. And then each week, we break it into 4 parts where then the department head would email 4 different learning components. And they had already learned this in onboarding, but it's a refresher course. So as an even more tangible example, one month we'd focus completely on greetings. So week 1 would be what we call the world stops. And that means when a member comes in, the entire focus goes on that member. It's not nice enough to be working and say, hey, great to see you, have a good workout, but literally all attention stops and focuses on that member so they know they're the most important person in the world. So that would be in that department head email week 1, and then the department head would follow up, because you can send emails all day, but if you're not following up with your staff, it's not going to sink in. So it'd be like, hey, Chantel, did you get the email? Tell me a little bit about the world stops. So then that follow-up, that quizzing to make sure it's dialed in. Week 2 is how do we warm welcome a prospect? Week 3 was how do we warm welcome a member? And then week 4 was a fond farewell. So again, you can create 12 specific topics in the customer experience, break it into 4 components, and create that calendar. Because if you create a calendar, it actually gets done. We all have the intention, I'm going to train my staff more on customer experience, but that goes to the wayside if it's not actually scheduled and organized. So that's just a sort of a tangible tip in that customer experience area.
Brilliant, Chris. Thank you so much. JT, what do you want to add to that?
I want to give an example of a club that really exemplifies what Chris just said right up front. I think Mike talked earlier about transparency in our communication, and Chris just said, if you're creating an experience, people will want to come back. So I got an email this week from the fitting room in New York City. It was a very personal, heartfelt email from Carrie, who has, of course, been on the show. Chantel, quickly do your research. Tell everybody what show number that was, because I don't remember. And you're on mute, Chantel, so no one can hear you. But in this email, it said, I am going to continue to pay my staff while we are closed for the next 2 weeks. If you love our staff and you get value and you really want to help our staff, click here and you can donate to their salary. And there was a $25 donation and a $100 donation. Now, I don't know how many people actually clicked on that, but I thought that's a ballsy effort. But the reason it's ballsy is because she knows her coaches deliver an amazing experience that people are going to miss, and they're going to want those coaches to come back and not go and have to find another job somewhere else in the corporate world. I loved it. Hats off, Carrie.
And really quickly, Chantel, Justin, to your point of experience and personalizing it, it meant something to you. I literally got an email from a club that was from General Manager 249. Yeah, I'm not even joking. And I was like, I feel as if I didn't feel attached to that club to begin with, but that made it even worse. I was like, okay, I'm member 745. Nice to meet you, General Manager 249. Wow. Yeah, so that personalization is important.
Paul?
My sister Lynn, who does all our social media, she's been watching everything that's going on, what people are posting, and she highlighted to me over the weekend there was a post where a customer at Chelsea Piers in New York, I think Chelsea Piers have closed for the time being, had gone online and asked the question, what are you going to do to compensate me for the period of time when the club is closed? ? The next post was from another member saying, I don't expect you to stop my money. I'm happy to pay. I'm not looking for compensation. Just pay your staff. And it was like, how part of me was like, how embarrassing to be the first person who says, what are you going to do for me? When the second person goes, you can keep my money. And I'm thinking, if you can afford Chelsea Piers, you can afford a few months of not you know, there are going to be people who are really, really hard up and go, I can't afford it. And we have to be human, you know, humanistic, as you said, JT. And there will be people that can afford it. I'm not stopping my payments to the boxing club where my daughter goes. I want it to be there when it finishes, you know, when this is all over and done with. So, you know, just another example of that type of interaction.
Yeah, thank you all so much for sharing those. And a couple of quick points. So JT, in answer to your question, Carrie Sadowitz was on show 224, talking about behind the scenes of building a fitness brand. If anyone wants to check that out, just put 224 either in the video comments or just jump over to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com and I'll make sure I include a link in the show notes. So that was number one. The other thing that I'm just going to ask you all to have a think about as we move into the final section, and Mike, I'm coming to you in just a second, is I love these examples, these real life examples that you're sharing, like the one that JT just talked about. So as the others are talking, if there are things that pop into your mind that you have seen in the last couple of weeks people are doing, or even outside of this current period that you think could be of use to any of our viewers or listeners today, then I'm going to encourage you to share those when you talk. So Mike, 2 seconds, because I can see Paul is just aching to say something. Go for it, Paul.
Okay, so there's a guy here in the UK called Paul Venning. He has his own cycle studio called Venning Studios. He's had it for about 15 years. So he was a boutique before boutiques. He's rented out all of his bikes to his customers. So his studio's empty, and he's rented them out and as far as I understand, he's rented them out, taken to his customers' homes. He's charging them I think it's either a weekly or a monthly fee. So he's getting some income. I don't know whether he's now going to stream from the studio or anything like that. But I just went, that's so simple. If you're a small spinning studio, rent your bikes.
That is exactly the type of example I was after, Paul. Thank you so much. So, Mike, thank you for being so patient, and no doubt you've been enjoying listening to everyone else. So let's go to you on your number one tip in regards to how we're planning and thinking about the future for our business right now.
Sure. I mean, I'm just taking notes and learning from you, fine folks. I want to piggyback on what Chris was saying. The worst thing that can happen to a salesperson is them not selling for a period of time, right? Because they get dull. And the worst thing with that, of course, is when you come out of this thing, they can't be dull. They got to be sharp. So I think that one of the best things that we can focus on with our team is practice. And, I know that, with a small group of people that I'm working with, I've got about 30 plus hours of content that I'm going to be recording which I've always wanted to do. It's working on the business. This is going to give me an opportunity to do it. I'm like, hey, I'm going to get a bunch of people on the call with me. I'm going to record some content. Because my intent is for our staff and people we're working with, when we come out of this thing, you need to come out sharper, leaner, and meaner, sort of thing, right? I think that's one part of it. And to capitalize on the marketing part, I think the fitness industry, we do really well with fitness. Like, we do really well with weight loss. We do really well with picking things up and putting them down. We do terrible with wellness. Awful, right? We don't do a very good job in helping people with diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, none of those things. So it's almost like the fitness business is being pushed and squeezed into that space, right? The people that are struggling the most, and Casey said, listen, if you're between the age of 18 and 60 and you think you're going to get sick of coronavirus, you need help, right? You need to get healthy. So I think there's a really massive opportunity there to work with people that are struggling with diabetes, that are struggling with hypertension, and offer the right. But you got to have the expertise. I think that's where your regular certification just isn't going to cut it. You got to have a higher level of education, like an orthopedic dietitian, which we happen to have. So where I'm really excited in about 7 to 10 days or so to start taking advantage of it once this becomes somewhat normal state of being.
Mike, thank you so much. So let's get ourselves super organized for this last section, because I'm going to put every single one of you on a 60-second time limit, but I'm going to give you options. So here are your options. Number one, you can share with us one more tip around your area of expertise. Or number two, you can share with us a real life case study or example that you have seen happen that you want to share with all of the audience today. Or if you're really quick, you can do 30 seconds of each. But Casey Conrad, you're kicking off and your time starts now.
Well, I think number one, we said it before, you have to be humanistic throughout this time. Empathize, but motivate. Make sure that people know there's hope. This is what people need. This is what we sell. And as far as sales are concerned, I agree with Mike. Train your people. Your Fitness Business Podcast has so much material on it. You should be choosing a topic, a day, a week, whatever it is. Keep your employees engaged, even if they're on unemployment, so that they'll have a job when they come back.
Look at that, and well under 60 seconds. Casey, thank you so much. Mike, over to you. One tip or one case study example that you want to share?
God, I got one more tip. I think, and this is going back, piggybacking on what Casey Conrad was talking about, the coming out party, which we'll find out later if people like that terminology. Become the authority and the expert in your town. Volunteer to go in your local news station. Volunteer to write for your local newspaper, especially if you have the authority and the credibility to do it. My goodness, for the people that I want to do my best, for the people that we do our best work with, for those people that are struggling with metabolic syndromes, those are the people that I want to reach out to and keep on top of mind. So my tip, become the authority if you can with your expertise.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mike. David, over to you.
So mine's a tip as well. It's time to prepare, right? When this virus subsides, and it will, it's not about like if, it's going to be when. People are going to get back to the gym, restaurants, movie theaters, events. It's going to be crazy, and you need to be prepared. So you need to be ready to flick that switch. So you should know what your pricing is going to be. You should know what your strategy is going to be, who you're going to communicate, your ads are going to be. You want guns a-blazing. It's not going to be about the big crushing the small. It's going to be about the fast beating the slow, right? It has nothing to do with size. So you need to do things right now. It'll pay up to come. Clubs that are thinking that they're going to take a week to open after they have notice, you need to be open up in a day. You just need to be fast, right? I think Mark Cuban had a quote that I love. Not often that I love one of his quotes, but rather than focus on how bad it is, focus on how you can use this time to connect with your future customers.
What a perfect takeaway for us today, David. Thank you so much. Dr. Paul, over to you.
Sorry, had to unmute. I would get people thinking like this: routine. If someone normally trains at 6 o'clock on a Monday night, make sure they do their home training at the same time, so you don't lose that space in their daily routine. If you're streaming content, like you've got content to stream, something like Les Mills or Wex or any of those, if your Monday night slot in your studio is body pump, stream body pump at 6 o'clock on a Monday night. Match your streaming to your studio timetables or your Group X timetables. Get people, don't let them get out of the habit of exercising when they normally exercise. If it's first thing in the morning, make sure they keep doing it first thing in the morning. Otherwise, they'll fill that time in with other activities. And when you're ready to accept them, they'll have moved on to something else.
Paul, thank you. I think that point that you make about routine, I think we all that was a light bulb moment for so many of us, and maybe not something that people have considered down to that level of detail. And I think that's definitely something that all of our owners and operators can think about right now, and how they're delivering that experience and that service during this time. So Chris, over to you.
1 minute. All right. So I would say this from a member experience standpoint, dedicated engagement time with your members. So look at your, you have the time right now to look at your check-in activity and find out when the people are coming in. And you may just know that anyway, but treat it like a restaurant, know when the rush is, and make sure that you block time in your calendar to be on the floor interacting with members. So from a leadership role, that's going to be one of the most important things, because you'll have your people coming back who are beating down your door to get in, but you're going to have a large segment of the population who's still nervous and hesitant to come back. So when they make that big courageous step to step foot in the gym, you're there to make sure that they get some positive encouragement, they get some great conversation, they really feel glad that they came. And I think also then coaching your staff to do that as well. So if you've got 3 people behind your welcome desk, you go up there and say, hey, you're going to be the guy who's just on the floor today, and you'll be the person behind the desk. But dedicate blocks of time for nothing but simply engaging, conversing, and giving positive encouragement to members.
Wow, look at you. You did that in under 60 seconds. I am super impressed. JT, over to you.
Well, I'm going to start with a really simple one. As leaders, we all need to be working out ourselves. We can't sit back and use this as an excuse for us not to work out. When we work out, we will feel better. We will be leading from the front. We will automatically then have these creative thoughts. So before I get to the creative thoughts, I want to give a shout out to Jose Texera, also a previous guest. He has all his staff videoing their own workouts in their house and then sharing that so that people can see that the staff are still working out. So they're not streaming, they're just videoing the workouts. Love that idea. But I think we need to get creative moving forward with how we run our business with our staff. Get creative now around the rewards, the recognition program, the recruiting process, and even get creative around the rosters, as Chris just suggested. We might be fat on the rosters for the first couple of weeks. We got to get creative. To get creative, we need the juices flowing. We need to be working out too.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. So as I've been listening to you all today, I've been trying to kind of look at or think about what the most common themes are. Casey's got to go. Casey, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your valuable input. We're super grateful. So just having to think about everything that you've all contributed today, and believe you me, it's very hard to kind of summarize it. But for me, there were three key areas that just kept hitting home again and again and again. The first one is communication. So just how important it is that we're continuing to communicate with our teams, our members, making sure that we're taking every opportunity and different opportunities to keep up those levels of communication, whether it be through a marketing piece, as David suggested, or whether it be sitting down with our team, or whether it be recognizing our members, whatever it is, let's keep that word communication top of mind. The second one, which Paul just mentioned, or I think, now I can't remember. You look so much alike. I can't remember, but it was Paul or Chris. Routine. So just making sure that we are keeping our members in the routine that they're used to. And I always think about something like group fitness, which is all about routine. Our members get so used to doing the same thing at the same time, week in, week out. Let's not break them out of that habit. Let's find a way to keep that going. And then for me, the biggest thing and the biggest word comes down to really what Casey mentioned earlier. And David, I think you touched on it again, and maybe you did too, Mike, opportunity. So how are we using this time right now to be thinking about those people that are inactive? So we've got all this consideration about our members, which is so important, in our team, but how can we look at the opportunity that exists at the moment, and what can we do to work on our business right now to really think about the future of our business? So just a very special thank you to every single one of you today, and to Casey who had to leave us already. I want to thank everyone that has tuned in today and watched either the video broadcast or listening into the audio show. We feel very blessed to have such experts join us and share their expertise. And I want to encourage everyone, if you're watching or if you're listening, share your stories with us. Share your stories in the comments below. Tell us what's working for you. Tell us where your challenges are. Jump onto the Active Management community on Facebook. Share your stories there as well, because the more we talk about this right now, the better off we'll all be. We can help each other through this. This is not one gym versus another. This is us as an industry and as a community trying to move forward and work our way through this. So to all the FBP family out there, thank you, and thank you to all of you for joining me here today.